We'll go ahead and get started. It's 2:00, I think. My name is Matt Mishkin. I wasn't looking up my name. I was looking up at the time. My name is Matt Mishkin. I have met a bunch of you. I have probably emailed a bunch of you. I've probably awkwardly introduced people to a bunch of you because that's kind of my favorite thing to do, and then walk away and make you sit in awkward silence or talk to each other. So I am the deputy director of the Johnson Depression Center. We actually are in this building. So thank you everybody for coming here. We are on the 5th floor. This coalition of athletic communities for mental health was something that a few of us came up with a couple years ago. Daphne, who probably doesn't want to stand up, but Daphne, stand up. Suzanne, who also is in the back standing up. Were really instrumental, especially this year, in helping out. And I know everybody's probably checking in with folks. So there's Brittany, there's Amy, there's Claudia, all out there. So I get the pleasure of coming up with ideas, and then they get the extreme joy of having to like figure out how to make those ideas happen. So I don't do much work. I just come up with stuff, and then they do all the work. So if you see Brittany, Claudia, Amy, all those other folks, say thanks to them, because they are really the ones who did tons and tons of work. And Brittany, this whole weekend, was out getting stuff. So I think she's worked almost the entire weekend. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna talk for just a couple minutes, and then we're gonna do our first panel with Joe Fontana, just like Montana. I got it right. So I want to say thanks to first our supporters, and then we've got a bunch of partners that I'll list on one of the slides too. So we could not do anything like this without a lot of help, without a lot of support. I'm gonna go the right direction. Just a couple logistics things. So tonight we're gonna have a pasta bar. So come back. It's free food. We are going to have from about 6:30, 6:45 to 8 o'clock, we're actually going to have a panel. If anybody was here last year, we had an athlete panel. We're going to do something very similar again this year, bring some folks back. I mean, it's kind of weird because most of the panels are athlete panels, but we call it our athlete panel. So come back tonight. We'll have another panel. It's going to be really awesome. Jonathan Jenkins will be moderator. Ryan Holinsky, Allison Wagner, and Julie Myers will all be on the panel. So it's going to be really, really cool. There's going to be some other student athletes coming in tonight. So please stick around for that tonight. So just let you know, the last I checked this morning, we had 240 people signed up in one fashion or another. And Oliver, we have the webinar going, right? Okay, awesome. And if you're on the webinar, if you could let us know if you're having watch parties and how many people are with you, just so we know just how many people are out there, because we're hoping it's more than 240. And so we had about 51 people sign up virtually. So hopefully at some point here in the room, we'll have 190-ish people. And I also know there's people who haven't signed up who are coming. So maybe we'll top that 200 in person at some point in the room. And then we'd sent out a survey. These numbers are actually from the survey. So one of the cool things is these are actually kind of hard to read up there, but we've actually got a really good mix of people in here. We're definitely a little bit clinician heavy, but we have a really good mix of people who are here, and we have a really good mix of people in different levels of sport. So when we thought about this coalition, one of the main things we wanted to do was be a place where anybody could come. So I know we've got some high school student athletes in here. We've got some college student athletes. We've got some former pro athletes. We've got Olympic athletes. We have clinicians. We have folks from the nonprofit space. We did not want to limit this. We did not want it to be just psychologists, just psychiatrists, just athletic trainers, whatever. So it's open to everybody, and that's really what we wanted. So I'm actually really happy to see a good mix of folks here. So tomorrow night, or no, tomorrow, I think I screwed something up. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. Anyway, we're doing breakfast burritos tomorrow morning, just so you know. That's probably the main point of this slide. And then we'll have plenary sessions, and then we'll have a series of breakout sessions. One will be in here, and then anybody that did the trainings today, there'll be a couple back there. So all throughout there. We'll help you find them. And then also from 1 to 3 tomorrow, if you need a new headshot, we'll do new headshots. So you can get a new headshot. So I'll talk more about that tomorrow. But breakfast burrito is probably the main point of this slide. Tomorrow evening, we're doing something a little new this year too, and this is a good networking event. So from 6 to about 8:30, and maybe a little bit before 6 o'clock, we're gonna move some stuff around in here, and we're just gonna have cornhole. We're gonna have like a big tic-tac-toe thing. We're doing pizza, which we did last year. So what we wanted to do is give everybody just an opportunity to hang out, to network, to get to know each other, not have any panels, not have anything else. All the tables will still be up tomorrow. So come back tomorrow night too. We'll have some music. So we're gonna have a couple kids do an acoustic set. So it'll be fun and it'll be a great networking opportunity. So come back tomorrow night. Sorry, Joe, I'm trying to get here quickly. Oh, here's all of our partners. I think almost all of them. I really apologize. I probably missed a couple, and that is not because I don't like you. That's simple oversight. So I really apologize if you're missed, and come tell me, and then I'll add it. And then one thing, and Allie, this is going up twice because not everybody's here. So one of the things that we wanted to do too was have this coalition so we can build collaboration, like work with each other, figure out what all is out in this space. So Allie Irish, who's out there, she's probably not gonna stand up. She's right over there. So we got a group of us together to do a couple presentations in London, like the England London, not the Ontario one, the England one. And Allie won best oral presentation for a student. So and I'm showing it tomorrow. Same picture. But I thought that was really cool because I was like, the whole point again of this coalition was to try to do more than just what we're doing in the room. Really try to get out there and do different things. So it was really awesome that we got a group over there, and it was super awesome to have Allie get the award. And her face was really surprised. It was kind of funny to watch when they announced her. But anyway, I think that's probably it. Nope, that's the one for tomorrow. So I'm going to now introduce Joe, and Joe is from the Mia Fontana Foundation. I don't know if you want me to introduce you. Well, I lost my paper. So the Mia Fontana Foundation, so it was started in 2021 or 22, 2021. So after Joe and his wife, Gabrielle, I got it right? Or no? Yeah, okay. There's two different ways to say the A. I'm not that bad. After their daughter Mia died by suicide, and so I had the paper in front of me. But you know, your mission is again to give back to the community, and really start to, I think, honor Mia's legacy. And one of the things we thought would be really good with Joe and our panel today is around community building and getting out into communities. And we thought Joe would be a really awesome person to lead this panel. So sorry, that was not the best introduction, but it's great. I lost my piece of paper. I'm sorry. Does this work? Maybe. Oh, and everybody else probably needs them too. Are these all on, Oliver? Yeah. Can you all?
Hello. Hello.
Can you hear me? Yep. Hello, everyone. My wife and I, Gabrielle, we travel from Maryland, and I was packing for this trip, and I thought, is Matt going to wear a sport coat? Nah. Thanks, Matt. You're in jeans, though. Yes. All right. So hello, everyone. I wanted to introduce our panel today. We have Ralph Fawaz, founder of Tele-Hope, Catherine Ames, who is the owner and founder of Thru the Game, Stephanie Donaldson, who's a founder of BroncoBOLD, and Donna Reed, who is the Chief Advocacy Officer of Reuniting Pathways. So why don't each of you just kind of take a minute and kind of introduce yourself and your organizations?
Thanks, Joe. And what an awesome panel to be a part of. And for Matt and Daphne, thanks, guys. And so, Ralph Fawaz, I run a nonprofit focused and started up in Laramie, Wyoming, and we now work in 8 states, and it's all about connection. How can we end this epidemic of loneliness and isolation, especially for the youth? And so we focus on ages 5 to 25, but our ideal target range is kind of juniors and seniors in high school and freshmen and sophomores in college.
Hello, everyone. I'm the owner and founder of Thru the Game, and I'm a licensed clinician, and I started the business about 5 years ago. I've been in mental health a long time, but launched this in 2021. Our mission is to provide mental health education and support to athletes, coaches, and parents. To date, I've worked with over 100 different teams and programs, predominantly in state, but I have done some out-of-state work as well. And I'm so excited to be here again. I was here last year, and it's great to see familiar faces. So thank you for being here.
Matt, would you please not go too far away? Because I think you're queuing up. Oh, perfect. Okay. All right. Perfect. My name is Stephanie Donaldson, and I'm the Assistant Athletic Director at Boise State University. I oversee the athletic counseling and mental performance, and then also BroncoBOLD and our BroncoBOLD High School Ambassador Program. I think it's probably best and easiest to show a short video that fit within the time parameters that we were allowed for introductions, because it's hard to put into words what our program does. So we're going to show a short video, and we're probably in the way of it as well. BroncoBOLD, a Boise State student-athlete-led mental health initiative, has launched the BroncoBOLD High School Ambassador Program with students and administrators throughout the Treasure Valley. The BroncoBOLD High School Ambassador Program is a 3-year program designed to provide education and tools to support motivated high school students to become active leaders and advocates of mental health on their campus and in their community. 10 local high schools participated over the last 2 years, and in 2026, the program expanded to 16 schools throughout the greater Treasure Valley. All participants carry and share the message of hope, help, and resiliency with fellow students and throughout their community. Boise State student athletes and first-year high school ambassadors come together for a day-long mental health summit at Albertson Stadium. During the fall, schools raise awareness throughout Boise and surrounding communities for Suicide Prevention Week, including Chalk the Walk, which shares messages of positivity and hope on sidewalks. Throughout the year, Ambassador High Schools align with Boise State's BroncoBOLD Mental Health Matters Games to host their own designated BOLD games at their respective schools. Through innovative efforts like Mental Health Monday Instagram Reels, High Five Fridays, and lunchtime assemblies with Boise State BroncoBOLD guest speakers, Ambassador Schools spark connections and conversations with peers to create change.
I really draw my support from friends and teammates and my family, because when things get tough, like they're the people that are always going to be beside you and that you can trust.
The BroncoBOLD High School Ambassador Program was made possible through a generous grant from locally based Hall & M Ware Charitable Foundation and continues to help Boise State student athletes, coaches, staff, and the community come together to raise mental health awareness. Mental health can impact all areas of life, including physical, emotional, and social. And the Broncos are excited to team up with Ambassador Schools and community partners through this bold and impactful work.
Well, I don't have a video. Sorry about that. No, I'm Donna Reed. I'm a co-founder and chief advocacy officer with Reuniting Pathways. We are an organization that works to bring people, the community together and provide that purpose, the sense of purpose, hope, and belonging, those 3 top risk and protective factors. Our 3 pillars, we have advocacy. I am an advocate for students with special and gifted needs, and working on building an army of advocates so that we can all support our students and families. We also do prevention work, and our big, hairy, audacious goal in that pillar is student youth leadership summits, doing prevention with the youth, giving voice and choice to the youth. And then our other pillar is organizational alignment. So really working to bring everyone together so that we're not siloed and we're reunited as one to support each other.
That's fantastic. Everybody found a need and is trying to solve problems out there. For the Mia Fontana Foundation, what we're trying to do is raise mental health awareness in teens, children, young adults. And one of the ways we've done that is we're focusing on anxiety and anxiety disorders. And the reason is because usually it's common to present early on in childhood and adolescence, and it's often associated with other mental health disorders. And so early identification and, basically the kids in middle school that think something's wrong with them, they don't know what it is. And so we have a movie we show called Angst. It's a great movie. It's got Michael Phelps in it. And it's just basically got kids talking about their anxiety. And so, kids, we go to schools, we present this to the families, the students, the parents, and the kids are sitting there thinking, oh my God, that's me. And so it's been very effective. We usually associate it with a mental health professional and answer questions, things like that. So also for the parents to kind of recognize issues early on with their kids. So, okay, for the first question, it's for everyone. Each of you saw a need that wasn't being filled and you decided to step in. What need do you see that wasn't being filled, and why did you decide to step in with a community-based approach? You can go ahead.
I spent many years in school systems as a mental health person, a counselor. And I think my experiences there really led me to see the gaps and the lack of preventative work. Also the limits. Are there any school people in here, school folks? Yeah, right. Hey, guys. There's a lot of limitations in terms of what we can do and how do we reach kids. So as a counselor, I felt like I did the best I could, but it was never enough. And my first entry into mental health was with very under-resourced communities, kids in the legal system, all the way to private schools here in Colorado. So I had experience in both environments, seeing that there still wasn't enough. My background was in sports and athletics as a Division I athlete, and that's really the reason I came through the sports world, is because I knew that's where the kids are. That's where kids are. And I know that there's so much we learn through sports. So I saw that we weren't doing enough on the prevention side. And then in my private practice as a clinician, we're already there. We already have some issues. What are we doing to get ahead of this? And I was talking to someone earlier. I think what's hard is this is all upstream. Even today, all of us here, we get it, but you're still out there trying to convince people, hey, this is really real and important. So to me, it was prevention. We weren't doing enough on that front end, and I saw that in my practice and in the school systems at all ends.
That's great. Thank you. Ralph, you want to go next?
Yeah. Very similar. Growing up, sports world, I've played sports all across the US and everywhere, actually, across the world. And something that I recognize, having played with the Wyoming Cowboys, was there are guys and there are teammates that are leaving this place without friends. On a team of 110 guys, how are we leaving with 0 friends? How is this happening? And now it's worse than ever with NIL and the transfer portal. But so the gap that I had seen was these young kids looked up to us. And Tele-Hope initially started off as a student-athlete partnership program. It was this mentorship and partnership program to develop hope. But what we quickly realized is the guys on the football team need hope and the kids in the schools need hope. How can we fix this connectiveness? And so we completely restructured the nonprofit to 40-minute interactive workshops on how can we give you the confidence to be there for one another, because you can't always rely on the counselors. Sometimes the counselors and teachers, you guys are moms, the only person that listens, their best friends. You have thousands of kids in the schools, it can't be just up to the teachers and counselors and coaches. Nobody knows these kids better than the kids. And so the gap that we saw is this preventative upstream focus of how can we be friends first? How can we connect with each other on a deeper level? So we know that when we go through these certain instances and certain situations, we can rely on each other.
Okay. So by trade, I'm a licensed clinician. So I was in private practice for 17, or I've been in practice for 17 years in my role with Boise State for 7. So by trade, I'm a clinician, and this BroncoBOLD, everything on it is not in my job description at Boise State. So what we really, once I started at Boise State, what we decided is we needed to have actually just the clinical practices in place. We needed to have, the mental health emergency action plan. Everything was pretty solid there. And there really was an awareness within the department that mental health matters. That was led by our athletic director, Jeremiah Dickey, who had a really strong belief in mental health being just as important as physical health and a holistic care model for our student athletes and our staff. And so it felt like something was missing. And in a few years back, Communities for Youth, which is a local organization in Boise, they got a grant to do studies with our youth. Started in Boise, Idaho, and then went throughout our state. And they looked at youth wellness, and they looked at some different markers, and what they came to find, which I know will be echoed throughout this conference, was that the youth were really struggling with loneliness, with lack of connection, with feeling isolated. And so I started to notice that it wasn't just our youth, it was also our Boise State student athletes, our collegiate student athletes, our staff, our coaches, our faculty. And so from that point, that led us to start more of student-led organizations within BroncoBOLD, which was our high school ambassador program. And our whole model there is by letting students lead, and they're deciding what they want to focus on and where the areas that they want to lead, but starting connections through these student activated led initiatives. I also feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't mention funding is being a need that we saw. And so how do you start these programs if you don't have funding? And so I think I feel like I need to say that obviously the purpose and the intent is to help our students, our community, and to create a sense of belonging, but it's hard to do that without funding. So a piece of the high school ambassador program is it created something that donors were really interested in. It was something that they could see. A lot of mental health is behind closed doors, and so it's hard. I thought initially when I started in my position that mental health, that'll be so easy to fundraise for. Everyone has their own lived experience, their own story, people connect with it. And I thought for whatever reason, the money would just come in, and it didn't. And so once we started a program that was out in the communities and people could see high school students being mentored by Boise State student athletes, they could see rural schools putting on their own BOLD games. It created a connection piece, and it created financial stability for our program, which we are completely self-funded. We aren't funded through the department or the university. BroncoBOLD is funded through our own fundraising efforts. And it also created sustainability and funding for the other programming that we do in our department.
So for us, we all started out as all 4 co-founders started out as educators in the classroom, moved on to school administrators, coaches, and then up to the district level. And what we saw, we then moved to another nonprofit after leaving the districts, and we're at the executive level there, working with schools. We saw the pressure on schools from our lived experience as well as working with the schools themselves. Everybody says, oh, the schools can get a grant for this, they can get a grant for that. But the pressure on them, not only for the reporting, the fiscal management, but the implementation is huge. And everybody's pointing at the school, oh, you got to do this, you got to do this. When I grew up, the community and the parents took care of the students. Now it's on the schools to be the end-all be-all for everything. And the compassion fatigue, that's why we have a lot of issues with attrition and teacher retention, administrator retention. It's real. And so our focus is to rebuild the community around the school, build that community strong, remove some of the pressures so that the teachers can get back to teaching, supporting, and coaching those students to be successful in life.
Thank you, Donna. Stephanie, your program's based within a university and reaches out to high school and other communities. Can you talk about the differences you see in a top-down, organizationally led approach versus a bottoms-up, and maybe talk about the pros and cons of each?
Sure. So I see strengths in both approaches. The top down, you see sustainability, oversight, there's structure. I recognize also with Boise State being attached to a university, there's branding that's recognizable, and that also helps create when we're trying to go into high schools, that did open a lot of doors because we were with a recognizable brand. And so I think I do need to recognize that piece. It also allows you the opportunity to collaborate with a lot of different departments on campus. So for an athletic department, in the whole scheme of the campus, it's really important that the athletics department is creating bridges to main campus. And BroncoBOLD was a way to be able to collaborate with over 22 different areas. And so I do recognize those as the pros. I think the trade-off maybe is that the ownership maybe the ownership in it can feel a little bit lower. I think people assume that I have all the staff and the funding in the world. I don't. And like I had said earlier, this is not part of my job description. This is like my side job that has become a full-time job as well. And I don't have all the staff. So like the people who created the video, that's an amazing gentleman who's part of our creative services department, but he does all the videos for football. So BroncoBOLD videos are not his main job either. And so like most departments, we're understaffed. And so I think there's a lot of assumptions there. From the bottom up model, I think that it creates buy-in and adaptability. It gives community ownership. I think the trade-offs can be that it can be maybe a little bit slower to get in and to get into programming within the communities. And I think it's financially can be less predictable, perhaps. But that's why BroncoBOLD, it follows both. It kind of falls into both. It's maybe in the middle between the two. I like to think of it as like a trellis and a vine with Boise State and the top-down model, but Boise State being the trellis, that's the structure, the support, the stability. And then, but how does it grow? How does the vine grow? And the vine is the community, the bottom up, which is what is the student-led leadership and the student-led initiations, the community buy-in and support. And so you can't have one without the other. It can't grow without the frame and without the structure of it.
Thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, certainly done a great job of leveraging the Boise State brand to reach out to the community. That's fantastic. Ralph, you've made some shifts over the past year in focus. Did you make that shift based on your observation, community feedback, or a combination of both?
It was a combination of both. Initially, Tele-Hope started off 2 years ago as the student athlete mentorship program, and it worked well. There was 46 athletes, we had 46 kids, it was great. And then NIL came in. And I see a lot of head nods and smiling, yeah. And so it kind of ruined it because the athletes, they don't want to stay in the schools for as long. The people were transferring in and out. You can't develop this real relationship. And so it initially scared me at first. I was like, oh, what do we do here? You know, we're just going to leave these 46 kids stranded. And then I actually went and golfed with two of the guys that we had. And you just see the connection between these two kids. You see how much happier they were. And then we ran a few surveys and a study on which one of these kids have generated the most hope. How many of them have actually gained some hope and look at the world in a more hopeful sight? And we realized that the kids that were becoming friends were the ones that generated the most hope. And so that's instantly when we made that shift of how can we show these kids that it's a lot easier to connect with each other? How can we give somebody the confidence to get up and make a new friend? And it's for all of us. How many of us in here are athletes or were athletes? Yeah, wow. And we've all been on different sports teams where you see the guy or the girl that's sitting alone. Our nonprofit, there's two ends of this. There's the guy that's sitting alone and there's a top-notch athlete. Okay, both these people have a lot of similarities of, I don't know who I can talk to. And that's the people that we want to hit. That person that's sitting alone, we want to give you the confidence to stand up and go find somebody else that's also sitting alone. That top-notch athlete, hey, you got other guys on this team that feel just like you do. Even with the NIL, all these different transfer portals, whatever problems you might be going through, go find one of your other friends. The sports psychiatrists, everybody on this staff is amazing. But again, who knows us better than our own teammates, than the people that are with us on the bus, on the plane, who's playing on the same field as us through these winter workouts is each other. And so our whole goal and why we made this shift is this connection. How can we build it as strong as possible? Because it might be scary to go up in Matt's office as he's falling asleep over there. And but it would be a lot easier to go in with one of your teammates to go and talk to Matt. And that's our whole goal. And that was the shift that we had to make.
NIL has really
Takes this.
NIL has certainly turned lots of things in the college world on its head, and nice job pivoting there. Catherine, you're working with groups in different capacities: clinical, training, education, prevention, and performance. How do you know where to focus your efforts? Do communities have different needs, or is it based on community priorities?
Well, I want to point out, I think one of the main reasons we're all here and one of the biggest preventative factors is connection and community. And we have lost a lot of that. You hear this theme up here, and even whenever we talk to anybody out here in the crowd, it's something that we know we need more of. So my work really varies. I just finished up 2 8th grade basketball teams where it was 4 sessions for the girls through the Gold Crown organization, Gold Crown Foundation. Any local people in here know that's a huge sports organization in Colorado. And so that was a great touch point, you know, and meeting these kids where they're at. I would say content, it does vary based on need, but mental health's mental health, kids are kids. Maybe I vary it based on the age. I leave here and I have 8th graders and 4th graders tonight. But it is about connection, providing a space, just giving them an opportunity to learn new things, learn new skills, talk about what they're pulling in on their feeds, what they're absorbing, even at these young ages. So for me, there may be this 4-session series I do. And then I also work with the Colorado Rapids. I'm their mental health provider for the academy. These boys go to school at the stadium and I'm there once a week. That's a much different program, a very big investment on their part. I feel very fortunate that they are so committed to mental health and to work with the kids the way that I do. So it really varies. I think if you all are out there going, well, how do I do this? How do I start? Start with, what do you want to teach? What is the most important messaging that is important to help kids in that preventative lane? And then each community may be different in terms of what they can do with you. We'll just leave it. I'm not reading anything. I also work with some nonprofits where I'm doing parent education. So I guess in a nutshell, it varies. I do everything from once a week to traveling to Memphis a couple times a year, training coaches there. Some of these organizations, though, I have to say, on a positive note, are very committed. And I've had now 4-year partnerships with some of these orgs. Some are not, right? It's like they do it once and then they're like, they think they've checked the box and we're done. And that's not the best way to go about this. None of this should be a one-off. This should, and what I say when I work with programs is you need to integrate this in training. I'm not going to come an extra day. Families are already tapped out. You do it during practice. This is a part of who we are. This is a part of our development. So little things like that, I would say, are universal. Make it convenient. Again, some of the content I teach, that is across the board. It may vary based on the age, but really each organization may want to do it differently, and I just try to meet them where they're at. So I feel lucky that I've had a lot of varied experiences, but I always say I'll talk to anybody. Like call me up, I'll be there. If you need a speaker, whatever you need. I think the more we're all doing this, and all of you, this is such critical work. You know, we have to get out there and continue to do this. So meet people where they're at, I would say. That's kind of the way I've been doing it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Donna, your organization is a connector. There's often a focus on building new things, and being a connector can sometimes feel undervalued. Should we take whose glasses away? Being a connector can sometimes feel undervalued. What does being a connector bring to communities that they may not otherwise have?
I think it's just that compassion, right? I don't wake up every morning, oh, I need to connect with this person. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I wake up with, I'm here to serve mindset, and whatever comes my way, comes my way. And like yesterday, I'm in a meeting with another colleague planning a project for a school. UPS driver knocks on my door, right? Oh, my kids ordered a package with a COD. What? What's this? Okay, well, come in. And I just introduced myself. Thank you for delivering. And somehow he starts sharing that his parents had just died, and he starts crying. And I'm like, okay. And I just kept letting him talk. And then he started sharing about his daughter and how she wanted to be a dental hygienist. And that happened to be what we were planning for, is a career pathway for students for dental needs in that meeting, right? But I took that moment, rather than rushing to like be stressed, oh, I got to get this check, to invite him into my space and talk to him. And even like a little bit ago, that's why I was late coming up, Matt introduced me to Madeline here, who started sharing about where she's at and where she's looking toward in her future. But taking that moment to listen and not think about what am I going to say to that person next, but listening actively, right? Practicing active listening. And that's how you connect with each other. That's how we can help each other improve our own mental health as well as others in the world around us. So that connection, it's natural if you care enough to listen.
Yeah, that's great. And making that connection out in the world really helps. So I'd like you all to think about the dissemination of the programs. First, what is needed to take a community-based program and implement it in a different community? Ralph, why don't you start?
Yeah, so I think something that we can all relate to here is and everybody in this room, is we all teach kids at such different ages. So everybody does things with even like 5-year-olds, you know, but the common ground that everybody stands on is we all want connection. We all want somebody to actually listen to us. And what we always tell the people that we talk to is it's one thing to say you matter and you belong, but it's something completely different to show them. And it's just like opening your door to the UPS driver. Who would really do that? Not very many people, unless you mean it, and this is the lifestyle you have. And so when we go and we try and implement Tele-Hope in these different communities and different cultures, it is about what does the community kind of need? What is the want here? Because we all know the want is connection, but how are we going to get it to you? What is the best way to give you this message and to make sure everybody knows it is this easy to connect with each other, because we all want that. And so when we go with the little kids, it's always about sharing. But when we go with the college age kids, something that we've been doing is like freshmen, it's all like your first semester of freshman year, they have this big class and we talk about listening. And the number one question we get is, how do I make friends? And we tell them, listen. You want to make friends, just listen. And so depending on the age, depending on community, it's the best thing that we've found is what does this community want and how can we portray this message the best to them so they understand that connection is everywhere and you can find it where you're at right now.
I couldn't agree more. I think, as we've said, this connection, and I love that compassion. Something I talk about a lot is, well, you hear the buzz around gratitude, right? The practice of gratitude. And what I also teach is, what about contribution? You need both, like be grateful, and then what are you going to do? So that's something I would say is more universal. But in terms of getting into different communities, you do need to get to know people, understand the different cultures that exist. Even though a lot of this is universal, there's still uniquenesses out there. But, we're up here we're preaching to the choir. You guys get it. But I've been in business meetings or information meetings where you have to speak their language. You might still show up and do what you're going to do, but you have to figure out how to get in the door. Does that resonate with a lot of you? Yeah. You need to know what's going to make a difference for them to actually invite you in. So sometimes it is that performance route. I know you had mentioned, I'm not a performance person. I mean, I was a coach, I'm a mom, I was a D1 athlete, but I'm mental health. But I do believe with all my heart, feel better, do better. I mean, that's the truth. I'm not just doing performance psych, I'm mental health. So sometimes I have to present it that way, maybe a little bit, understanding the sports culture. Like when I'm at the Rapids, these are kids. I mean, I have a kid that just turned 15 who signed a pro contract. They're babies. And they're playing with grown men. So there's a lot of stuff, that they're going through, but the coaches want to make sure I understand that competitiveness and that culture, and we can't be too soft, and right. So I think to get into different communities, you need to understand the landscape, the different cultures, and the needs. Figure out how to angle it so that you can make that connection. And then you show up and do your thing, then you be you and be awesome so they keep you there. That's what you got to do.
And I'm going to add to this real quick, and it's exactly that. We all think that it would be common sense that everybody would want us, that people would open their doors for us because mental health and mental performance does actually reflect on how you play. But there's this weird, and it's not us, we don't have dissonance with our message. We can't prove what we're doing actually works. But these athletes, a 15-year-old and the 25-year-old, you can't talk to them the same way. Much like we don't go in and talk to the general student body the same way we go in and talk to our sports teams. There's a different language that needs to be said and proposed to these people so that everybody understands, hey, look, this can actually help you in the long run. This is 10 times more important than your sport.
Sorry, one more thing though. You can see results now. I think I've always said, how do we prove this growth? But we're starting to do more questions after and pre-post these questionnaires and asking for feedback. And kids are saying that they feel more connected. I think that's data, right? And a coach will send me a picture of the kids sitting together on their own without being prompted and even winning, right? Like we are getting results. So I would just encourage all of you, don't think that we can't quantify some of this. I think we can, and maybe there's more data people out there that are like, yeah, of course we can. It's new to me, but it's important. And I think that's part of speaking the language, is they want to see the results.
Sure. Yeah. To that point, we're in our third year of the high school ambassador program, and we spent a lot of time this past summer how do we get data that can show that our programs are making a difference? Not only we wanted it to drive our own programming and to figure out what is next and if we're meeting the needs of the schools, but also anyone who's interested in donating to the program wants to know those metrics as well. And so we spent a lot of time trying to quantify data that shows that we are making a difference and making an impact. I think I would suggest that spending time in the relationship internship phase, even though we were with or we are with a university. It wasn't like this open door and come in and have this programming in front of our high schoolers and do anything you want. It took a long time to develop the relationships that would open the doors. The first year we only took 4 schools because one of the largest school districts said, I don't know about that. We'll just wait and see. And so we took 4 schools. We took the schools that actually, the first year we were asking schools to be a part of the program. And then we were able to build it and meet with the schools and ask the schools what they want. I think a big part of opening the door was not trying to create new programs or programs that already existed. A big piece of this work, I always say there can never be too many people in the space of mental health advocacy and bringing together community. And so how can we lift each other up? How can we help one another? And one of the ways that we did within the high schools is a lot of the high schools already had organizations, one of which like Hope Squad or Sources of Strength. And instead of saying, oh, we want to replace that, it was how can we come side by side and give the students another option, another ear to, or another opportunity to have mental health advocacy and student-led leadership in their schools. And so I think that was a big selling point, is that we weren't trying to replace current programs. We also didn't go in trying to, we started out by saying we will not do any curriculum based interventions with the students. We do provide training for coaches and staff like QPR and youth mental health first aid. But all the student base, the lane that we stay in is giving the students the tools that they need to create their own mental health initiatives and create a mental health initiative within their school that meets their school's needs. And so it really is giving the schools a voice in that. And I think that really helped create buy-in early on.
So for us, being kind of a newer foundation, and also I moved from the metro area up to the mountains, that's what we've been doing this whole last year, is connecting and getting to know our communities. We don't go in and assume they need us, but we show up to different meetings, getting connected, listening. I don't say a lot when I show up to meetings typically, unless something sparks an interest, or I'm able to say, we have this, or I have this resource. And by connecting people together, then it connects us all. I also think that when we connect on a natural level and we're not forcing the situation, then again, like I said before, we're listening. I've worked for organizations where, Donna, you have to go in and connect me with this person. Well, wait, you're not a fit. And as a director for the 3rd largest district in Colorado, I often got emails of organizations, we want to do this, we want to do that. But the ones that I talked to were the ones that took the time to give me the space to process, right? I had 90 schools to oversee and all the students and families. And when you kept getting the email every week from that same person, can I meet with you? Can I meet with you? I don't have the space to do that or the time. Yet those people that gave that space and then knew the system, right? They took the time to know this time of year is not a good time. It's the start of school year. The next time is CMAS testing. They knew that in the schools, it was better in the summer. Then I had the opportunity to connect with them and listen to them rather than just feeling forced. So yes, you do have to knock on doors, but don't over knock on doors, and understand what's on the other people's plates while you're doing that. And yeah.
Also to the point of when we talk about listening, I was just thinking about sometimes we're listening to the adults in the room, which is really important. But one thing that is really important is listening to the students. And I promise you not, they have the most amazing ideas, the things they come up with, the events and the activities that they lead at their schools, like Fist Bump Fridays and No One Eats Alone lunches. Those are like at the heart of why we do what we do. And those are all student-led ideas. We can come up with some activations that we think are going to be great. But in the end, it's the ability of the students to be able to come up with the most amazing ideas. And they've also thought of, they created this own award show, and they're doing the best of the bold at the end of the year. And they created this traveling trophy that they're going to travel from schools to schools to create like camaraderie and community. So this all came from, this is nothing on our book that was scripted. It all came from the students.
And the parents, right? A lot of times I'm in meetings and teams are making decisions for the student. They may have talked to the student, but the parents, think about it as coaches. Your parents have insight you can't imagine to your athletes, and it's important to include them. I've been in the trainings all day, all morning, and I've been thinking, one thing that we've missed in our discussions so far are the parents. We have to train the parents. We have to bring them into the fold too. And a lot of people say, Donna, well, how do you do that? They don't care. No, if you care, they will care. You get to know your parents, they'll be way better on the sidelines too. So youth and parents, don't make it closed off to your world.
Thank you. Okay, so this is a final closeout question for everyone. I'm going to start with you, Donna. Can you take a minute and share, when building your program, what is one thing that you really didn't do as well as you wanted, and one thing that you think you did really well?
I think the one thing that we didn't do as well as we wanted was maybe thinking too big at first and wanting to do everything. And then once we reined ourselves in and set our big, hairy, audacious goals, then we were able to focus. One thing that we did really well, we listened to each other. And we started writing our Robert's rules for our board meetings. And all of us were just like, ugh, right? And we're all highly trained in restorative practices. So we said, wait, we can do it a different way. This is our foundation. We don't have to follow the law. And so we took a step back and we created our own new system for bylaws, which now our board members are so astounded by. They're taking it to other organizations, right? We led with our integrity and what felt right, not trying to fit ourselves into a box.
Thank you.
Let me go. Okay, one thing I think early on that we didn't we were building the plane as we were flying it, honestly. So we learned a lot the first year, and even the second and third year, we're still learning. And but we built the plane as we flew it, and I think we learned things like we need to make sure that we're developing sustainable leadership pipelines in our schools. And we did that by, okay, well, this is our first year doing it in our third year now, but we're like, we need an advisory board. So each schools have their own leadership groups at their school, but now we have 2 students from each school that come and have regular meetings at Boise State. And again, it's that student-led focus, but having structures in place that also create sustainability throughout the year. Everyone was super gung-ho in the beginning, and then we started to see a drop-off in activations. And so we put some things in place like the BOLD Awards that keep track and keep points, make it a competition throughout the year, but that creates buy-in throughout the year. And then something I think we did well was just by coming alongside other community organizations and joining other existing organizations within the school and locking arms, and how can we lift each other up and help each other. I think that was something we did really well that allowed us to get into the spaces.
I think I thought this was going to blow up so fast. As soon as I launched, I was like, we're going to be huge. Well, it takes time. And so I would just tell you, it takes time. I mean, that Gold Crown partnership I referenced, we met last year at this conference. I just worked with them this past month. It takes time. So give it time. So I think for me, growth, I've done a lot of the work. I've had people kind of float in and out and help me. I have my son on board now. I've had a lot of interns. I have a lot of young folks that are like, Catherine, can I somehow be a part of this? So I think this younger generation is really longing for this stuff. But I think I thought, because I know how important mental health is, that everybody thought that, and that's just not the case. So that was probably the mistake or the error. But I think throughout any doubt, I just followed my heart. And that is what I would say. If this is something you're passionate about, which I know it is, just keep going in that direction. Know that this work matters. We are saving lives. I've had kids tell me that, people tell me that. So keep moving in that direction. But also, I do have doubts sometimes. I'm 5 years in. I always like, ooh, are they going to cut the programming next year? I never know. Nothing's guaranteed, but I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because I know it matters. And we were saying earlier, like, when you're knocking on those doors, I think at first, maybe I kept knocking. And then I'm like, there's other doors. There's so many people that are open and that do want the work, and the kids who want the work. That's what I'm leaning into. And I think that when we increase that popularity, other people are going to be like, damn, we got to get on board. And that's just what we have to do. So follow your heart, quiet those voices of doubt. Like I said, even this far in at this age, my son knows I'll come home and be like, oh gosh, but lean in and like, let's keep doing this work collectively.
And to everybody's point, real quick, it's much like recruiting. You just need one person to say yes, and then you're in the door, and then people start realizing your worth. But I started Tele-Hope when I was 21, so I did everything wrong. Everything was wrong. And the one thing that we did do well, though, was we built a team and we were patient with ourselves. And much to everybody's point is we waited for that one yes. And once we got that one yes, now it would start off as one classroom at University of Wyoming. Now we're doing all 1,400 incoming freshmen. And we're going to do it at OU and OSU as well. And so we were just patient with ourselves. Yeah.
That's great. So Donna, Stephanie, Catherine, Ralph, I just wanted to thank you for all the efforts you're making in your communities and the good you're doing, and appreciate you sharing today. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
No.
Yeah.
Like I didn't step on a break.
I'm about to leave.
So we can take about a 5-minute break. Nice. So. No, get away. Get away. Are they up? Tell. Okay.
Because I think I'm probably use the clicker.
That's what I use. It worked out pretty well.
Since we have 3 panelists, I was thinking of sitting up there. Okay, if I move that chair a little bit so I'm like more facing them. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. I was like, wait, I was in my head. Did everything? The way to get to this one? Okay. I think I'm gonna use this mic. Sweet. So I think I'm just gonna leave this on this thing. And then for the panel, I think is it okay if you do a quick little transition moment?
I'll transition now and then I'll transition.
Okay.
We can just leave these on the chairs.
Okay, yeah. And I think, yeah, for the panel, I'm gonna be sitting up there too, so I'm gonna keep this mic if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
No, I was thinking that way.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm stressed. When I when I switch the slides, it's gonna be in front of me also, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And if you're panicking, look at me and I will fix everything. I can see the panic in your eyes.
I'm not
Fix it.
I'm not panicking. Once I start talking,
You'll be good.
I'll be good. I mean, like, I'm literally recounting my trauma, which I've done so many times that I feel like once I start talking, I will be okay.
Yeah.
I need to start.
Speech load.
I hate the anticipatory nature of like sitting there
Yeah.
and like not just
It's
doing
always
it.
like the morning of until.
Yes.
Can't breathe, can't talk.
No, I think Matt's gonna do like a transition moment. So after I finish presenting, he's gonna come up and then,
I didn't know if we were in the way even.
yeah.
Drop the
No, you guys
names
should
now,
be
they'll
good.
put the lights here.
It'd be great.
I've done this before. I literally did this presentation already. Granted, it was a smaller audience.
So it's fine. Everybody here is listening to you.
And looking at me,
You're fine.
perceiving everything I say,
Tell that joke.
hearing all my trauma.
I'll tell that joke.
No, it's okay. The thing is, and I always do this to myself, it's the anticipation. I hate the anticipation. Once I start talking, I'll be fine. It's the fact that I'm even standing here right now and I'm like ready to talk and I have to like keep waiting. I hate this part. Like once I actually start, I'll get to the groove.
Yeah.
I'm not bad at public speaking. I actually
Oh.
kind of like public speaking, but I hate the buildup.
I have all the faith in the world. And hopefully everybody's coming back in like 2 minutes. That's always my fear. Is like people.
Our hard cutoff is at 4, right?
Kind of, because you got a 4 to 4:30 break, right?
I think so.
Yeah, so you can go a little longer.
I did decide after watching that panel and like keeping an eye on time. I think I'm only gonna do one open-ended question in the beginning. I was gonna do 2. I think I'm gonna do the one in the beginning and then I'll do the focus questions. Yeah.
And I'll come over like 20, however many you do. And I'll come over there and sort of like give you like
So
5 and 10.
yeah.
Or wherever you're facing. If you're kind of facing that way, I might just sit over there and like give you like a 10 or 5 and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you have any friends who play favorite up to you. So he swept up playing the high game.
We need to be able to get a microphone, like something out there, be able to see, tell people.
Right.
I'm gonna get y'all to.
Okay. Maybe. You already submitted, yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's the harm in England.
Is this one on? All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started again. So if everybody could start. It's Nadeau, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If everybody could take their seats, we are, oopsie. I think you've got the clicker thing? You got the clicker, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we got another presentation. I'm gonna go over just a quick housekeeping. So for the next presentation, we'll go until about 4 o'clock. Then we have a break from 4-ish to 4:30. And then we're gonna do a film screening with a follow-on panel and then our athlete panel later on tonight. And I do want to say, I don't know if everybody knows this, but Joe did an awesome job. And I forgot to say this beforehand, but Joe has experienced what we refer to as mountain sleep. He's not had good sleep because of the altitude. So if anybody is having trouble sleeping, totally normal. Absolutely normal with the mountain sleep. And if you go up higher, it gets even worse. So I just want to let everybody know that mountain sleep is totally normal. And Ralph, wherever he is, I was not sleeping. I was visualizing what makes me a better punter than Ralph and how I didn't feel the need to go D1 to punt. I just knew I was so good. I didn't need to do it. That's what I was visualizing. I want to be clear about that. So I'm going to introduce Bella Nadeau. Nadeau, yep. I think you'll do your own introduction because I'm not doing good at those, right? So Bella's going to basically introduce herself. It's going to be a little different this time. Bella's going to give about a 25-minute presentation on some work she's done. And then we're going to have another panel to talk more about storytelling and advocacy. So little bit of a different thing. I had a better word for it, but that's it. All right. You ready? You're going to do awesome.
Is this thing working? Can everybody hear me? Beautiful. Okay, well, thank you, Matt. And thank you to all of you for being here. My name is Isabella Nadeau. I go by Bella. You can call me Bella. I'm the Assistant Director of University and Alumni Programs at the Quell Foundation. And today I'm going to be presenting on storytelling and advocacy as therapeutic tools for promoting mental health. And as a very organic intro into this presentation, I wanted to take a moment to tell a little bit of my story because it's very much a part of everything that I do and my belief in storytelling as a tool for healing. So that little girl in the photo all the way on the left, that is the first time I ever put a bat in my hands. I started out as a lefty and I was not very good, so I didn't return to softball until much later in my life. I started playing softball when I was 11, and I also received my first diagnosis when I was 11. I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety, and depression when I was 11 years old. And softball kind of came into my life at the perfect time. It's always kind of felt like they existed in tandem for me. The relationship that I had with softball was very much that it was my coping mechanism. On the field, I felt like I was the most confident version of myself. It was my escape. I had tried different modes of therapy and therapists when I was younger. I had been on medication, and it was just a very up and down journey. So the softball field was really the only place that I felt like I could show up as my fully authentic self. Unfortunately, my softball career has not been one that has come without ups and downs also. I experienced my first major injury when I was just 13 years old, and I got my first major surgery when I was 14 years old. So I got my rotator cuff and my labrum done when I was just very freshly 14. And in the recovery from that, I really struggled because I had lost the one thing that I felt like was my tried and true coping mechanism, the only time that I felt like I could get an escape from the things that I experienced in my day-to-day. But my recovery did not go as planned. Initially, I was supposed to make a full recovery, be back on the softball field in about 10 to 11 months, and that did not happen. So essentially, we discovered that my shoulder was so severely damaged that in order for them to repair it, they had to repair it in a way that had my physical body and well-being for the rest of my life in mind and not with softball. And so I was advised by medical professionals to medically retire from softball at the age of 14. And so I did that at first. As you can probably imagine, I struggled heavily. I fell into a deep depression. I experienced the worst anxiety that I had ever felt at that point in my life. And I ultimately decided that I needed to reach for the only lifeline that I knew. And in order to do that, I ignored the medical advice that I had received. And I continued playing softball, even though that I knew that it was going to hurt my body. And I thought that this was the best thing for me. So I continued to play softball. I was lucky enough to receive a position in college on the University of Massachusetts Boston softball team. So right in the middle of the pandemic, I entered college. I was a freshman in 2020 and 2021. Unfortunately, my coach at that time was on furlough, so we did not have any contact with her. My previous coaches and eventually my college coach had been very supportive of my mental health. Mental health was something that we talked about regularly on my club and high school softball teams when I was growing up. So I wasn't used to not having this resource in the context of softball. And my mental health significantly declined in the fall of my freshman year of college because we also weren't allowed to play. So here I am again, experiencing a life without softball, without my biggest coping mechanism, and not really leaning into the other resources that I knew that I probably could tap into if I was ready. I didn't have the best supporting environment being at a school that was mostly closed. It was only the athletes on campus. On-campus health services were not open to in-person services. They had a significant wait list. I was confined to my apartment. I couldn't go home. I couldn't see my parents because of all the rules having to do with COVID. So they essentially told me, you know, if you want to play softball this year, then you cannot return to your home state of Rhode Island and see your parents, or maybe access support that I had previously been accessing. My former therapist was in Rhode Island. I couldn't go and I couldn't see her. She wasn't doing telehealth at that time. So it was basically just the perfect storm for things to get really bad. So in the spring of 2021, I was experiencing suicidal ideation, and for the first time really in my life. I decided though that if I wasn't feeling like I was supported in my community, that I needed to kind of think outside the box. And I was really itching to share. I felt like I had a lot of things that were going on with me, and I just sought connection. I resonated so much with the panel that we just listened to. I was feeling so isolated and alone, and I decided that I needed to do something. I needed to take action. So I thought to myself, if we're in a pandemic and we can't have connection in person, how can I utilize what's available to us? So I elected to use social media to put my story publicly online. I started a campaign called Let's Get Real About Athlete Mental Health back in the spring of 2021 and encouraged athletes all over the country to share their self-authored story publicly. And this was very cathartic for me and actually really helped me to gain new insights about myself and kind of pivot on the road to a more tangible recovery and feeling like my best self. Unfortunately, in 2023, injury returned to my life. I received is a funny way to put it. I got career season and then career-ending injuries consecutively my junior and senior year of college, which you can probably imagine was pretty traumatic. I went through a lot based on what I had gone through in high school. A lot of really negative emotions returned. But the difference this time around is that I had leaned into advocacy, and that was something that really helped me. So whereas the first time that I experienced injury when I was just 14, I fell into the deepest, darkest place I've ever been. The second and third time that I experienced these injuries, I knew more about myself and more about my community, and I knew how to lean into that, lean into advocacy, using my story for good, and finding my voice, which eventually led me to the Quell Foundation. And I will get a little bit more into that whole thing with Quell and tell you a little bit more about our organization and what we do. But I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to interview for the Quell Foundation's upcoming athlete documentary. And that was a very instrumental pivot point on my healing journey where I felt like I finally was the author of my own story. I wasn't letting injury or my diagnosis determine who I was or my identity or the way that I talked about myself or my softball career. It was just a truly genuine healing moment for me. So that's a little bit about my story. And I know that there's a lot of people in the room that have a lot of different backgrounds. So I wanted to take a second to ground storytelling as a tool. So just in the mundane, why sharing your story matters. Obviously, there's so many different ways that sharing your story can be impactful, but human connection, sharing your lived experience, you know that somebody else might have a lived experience that might connect you together, inspire a conversation, inspire them to maybe talk to you or seek resources. Reduction of stigma, normalizing conversation. Everyone in this room knows that mental health and mental illness is a stigmatized thing, and we are obviously working every single day to chip away at that stigma. But the more conversations that we have and the more stories that we hear about people with lived experience, that stigma is going to be chipped away. Normalization of vulnerability, especially I think about in the athlete space, it's hard to be vulnerable. And so having these conversations and bringing your full authentic self forward, it can be very healing. And then an opportunity for self-reflection. This was arguably the biggest one for me. It allowed me to gain new insights about myself, the ways that I might be able to heal and who I was in my identity, aside from being someone who played softball. And to just shift to the clinical lens a little bit, because I know that there are a lot of clinicians in the room. There are psychological and therapeutic aspects of storytelling that root in making meaning through story, reframing trauma, and building resilience. So just continuing with some context here. So narrative therapy, developed by Michael White and David Epson, is an empowering method that helps individuals separate from their problems through reframing and retelling of life stories. This therapy aims to assist people in living according to their values and goals. I feel like that retelling is a really big thing because, as I said, when I was thinking about my own life and my own identity, just speaking from my lived experience, I really was letting other things drive the way that I thought about myself and my life and my identity, who I am as a person. So having the opportunity to self-author was really big for me. The goal of storytelling in the context of trauma is not just limited to recounting specific details of a traumatic event or lived experience, but creating a safe space for individuals to explore and make meaning of their life experiences, regain a sense of control, and restore their well-being. So I'm not going to go super in the weeds here, but I did just want to include this as well, some narrative therapy uses, because as I said, I know that there are some clinicians in the room. So it does encourage individuals to help reframe unhelpful narratives shaped by negative experiences, encourages emotional engagement, helping them to connect more deeply with their own experiences. It promotes new insights and supports facing challenges more openly and authentically, enables therapists to explain complex psychological concepts in accessible, story-rooted ways. It normalizes personal experience and fosters personal transformation. And research shows that narrative therapy can actually reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression, as well as inspire self-discovery, self-expression, and personal transformation. Again, not to beat a dead horse, but this was something that I really experienced in real time as I found my way through advocacy and telling my story through media. Comprehensive studies are limited due to the novelty of this approach and the quantitative measurement challenges. So further research is necessary to help fully explain the potential of storytelling as a therapeutic intervention, but it's something that's worth noting here because there's always more research to be done. And I think that so many of us, we do work that is evidence-based and we want to be able to support our research, our work through research. So there's always more work to be done in illustrating what the impact could be. So engaging in advocacy can improve mental health in so many different ways, just to name a few, kind of retouching on some things I've already said, but just fostering a sense of purpose, reducing personal and societal stigma, which we already discussed, the creation of social connections, and encouraging emotional regulation. And it can look really different. So advocacy is an umbrella word, but there's different types. So if we think about individual advocacy, that can look like an individual athlete speaking up to a coach about their mental health needs or confiding in a friend. Community advocacy can look like organizing or collaborating to address issues that affect a certain group, like we saw with our previous panel. Professional advocacy, which entails professionals or organizations using their platforms to advance ethical, inclusive, or equitable practices. So nonprofits, like so many people here in this room, using their work in their professional life to advance these different things. And then media and storytelling advocacy, which is using personal narratives, art, or media to inspire change or awareness. And for me, I feel like I really resonate with 3 of these things, and I've kind of blended together these 3 streams to find the thing that worked so much for me, which was blending the narrative therapy, so storytelling, retelling my own story, authoring my own story, professional advocacy through my work with the Quell Foundation, and then leaning into media and storytelling advocacy, which came through the social media campaign that I created, but also through interviewing for this documentary with Quell. And I'm not alone in this sentiment, so I'm not going to read this whole quote, but I looked back when I did a survey in 2023 talking to some of the athletes who had taken part in the Let's Get Real campaign, and I found this quote that I just feel like is very illustrative of what I'm trying to say. And this is a participant who said that telling their story has just had a huge impact on the way that they view their life and struggles with anxiety. And I like this next part because it says, it helped me to realize that my happiness and confidence comes from taking the time and taking the action to help myself first. Telling my story has had such an impact on my mental health, and I will be forever grateful to have been able to share my story and end the stigma around mental health. So this is not a unique experience. There are so many people who have felt the effects of telling their story and felt how cathartic it can be for them, and it can really be a true pivot point in people's healing journey to come forward and kind of tell their story in whatever way makes the most sense for them. So now I'm going to pivot a little bit and just talk a little bit about the Quell Foundation specifically and some of the work that we do. So the Quell Foundation is a 501c3. We are a national organization, and our mission is rooted in the reduction of stigma. And one of the ways that we do that is using film as a vehicle for advocacy and stigma reduction. So we use these films to encourage open and honest conversations around mental illness. We have 2 films that we currently have out in the world. The first is Portraits of Life with Mental Illness, which came out in 2018, and this just displays a variety of lived experiences and doesn't necessarily focus in on any specific population. And then we have our First Responder Sound the Alarm film, which came out in 2023, and that is focused specifically on the first responder population, so police, dispatch, EMS, and fire. And for both of these films, we actually partnered with some universities to do research. They did a pre and post survey to assess the stigma reduction of the audience members. And there's effective stigma reduction amongst audience members for both of these films. So we're really excited to kind of announce, it's kind of out in the world if you've been out at our table or been chatting with us throughout the day today, but we do have an athlete film that's going to be coming out in the fall of 2026. And just for me, sitting for the film and telling my story has had as equally of a profound impact as people who I think are going to watch the film and the reduction of stigma. And I'm going to kind of like go off script here and talk just for a second about an experience that I had when I was sitting interviewing for the film, because I feel like it just really illustrates where I'm coming from with this. I remember at one point in the interview process, and it was very much a conversation. I remember the interviewer asked me, like, where are you now? Like, how do you feel about yourself now? Because we had just had this really in-depth, deep conversation about identity and how I struggled with my identity, and I didn't like myself. I didn't know myself. I didn't know myself at all. I only knew myself as Bella the softball player, and Bella the softball player is kind of going through it. So like, who am I, And he asked me, well, how do you feel about yourself now that I've, engaged in advocacy and found some of my purpose? And it just came out. I didn't really think about it, but I said, I love myself now. And I think that just goes to show that I went through so many years. Since I was 11, I struggled with anxiety and depression. And I tried so many things, and there were things that worked for me. But I think that the thing that worked the most for me was telling my own story from what felt like was my own heart, instead of letting my diagnosis tell the story for me. And that is true. I do love myself now. And I think that me being able to engage in advocacy and find my sense of purpose outside of being a student athlete, that is ultimately the reason why. So I'm grateful to Quell to provide the platform for me to be able to share my story, because it was so therapeutic for me. And when I'm having my hardest moments, I think back to me sitting in that interview chair and being asked, how do you feel about yourself now? And just being able to respond back and say so authentically and truthfully that I do love myself now. It was the most incredible coming to experience. So I just wanted to throw that in there. And we're just going to take a second and briefly watch the trailer for our film.
Just get stuck in this game of what I called tug of war. Like, I can't do this because that's bad, and I can't do this because that's bad, and then I would just be on my floor crying, trying to figure out how to do my hair before this race. That's what a lot of individuals with OCD, they hear a rule and they take it to an extreme. I had heard that if you sit in the hot tub for a long time the night before, you're going to be groggy and it's going to be hard to get your muscles moving for the race day. And so I took that as I can only take cold showers the night before the race, or else my race will slow down.
I was hearing a lot of voices, seeing a lot of hallucinations. I didn't know what was happening with me. I was just feeling a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. Like I felt in a cage or boxed in. Look at it like it was something different or anything. It was just my norm.
In terms of normalizing conversations and check-ins from a mental health standpoint, I think that is crucial in terms of keeping up with how an individual is doing, but the same also applies for injuries and this culture in sports that surrounds individuals maybe like sweeping injuries under the rug so that they can perform, and doing all these different kinds of things so that they can just be there on the field and leaving these things unaddressed.
You know, losing someone to, natural causes is one thing, but losing someone to suicide is really, really hard. Every single person is going to think they didn't do enough. Every single person is going to wish they would have done more.
What happens is when something bad happens in that athlete identity part of the pie, it can make it feel like that part of their life is so consuming and feels so bad that it feels extremely overwhelming.
It was definitely within that first year. I am a very type A person. So I had experienced some sort of like performance anxiety in school. I was still a good test taker and it didn't really hit me that way, but it really came through in swimming. I felt like there still wasn't a huge opportunity for me to talk about my mental health.
Teenage boy sit in a room and talk about his feelings, or telling a teenage boy that he needs to take medicine, and he looks up online and it says can cause weight loss. That's the same kid whose football coach told him, I need you to gain 20 pounds before the next season. Unfortunately, there's a carrot and a stick aspect to that, and what happened with him was as a way to punish or try to manage some of his behaviors, he started to get suspended from sports.
Mentally, my identity as a student athlete kind of like faded to black. It's tough because no one ever really prepares you for it. And it had always been something that I was like, I'm so lucky to have had 5 years. But I think there's still like a piece of me that wishes that it ended a little differently. Sorry. That part got me a little emotional.
The doctors was like, it's come to the point like you can't play soccer anymore. There's too much damage. When he said like you can't play soccer anymore, that I feel like that was when like my world came crashing down. Like I left in tears.
So obviously I know that maybe landed very heavily for some of you, but this work is really important. And what we're doing at Quell using film and media, it's just one example of threading different streams to do advocacy, to inspire healing, self-discovery, and reduction of stigma. But there's so many different ways that you can do this. And telling your story doesn't need to be in a formal setting or sitting to interview for a film. It can look more organic. It can be lowering your mask with family and friends. It can look so different. So storytelling does bridge the gap between experience and understanding. And research shows that it reduces shame, builds empathy, and inspires growth. But beyond the data, it's just deeply human and rooted in lived experience. And I think that that's so important. And every time we share those, we remind someone else that they're not alone. And not only is that at the heart of advocacy, but it's the start of healing. And I can speak to that from the bottom of my heart. So thank you for everyone for being here. Thank you to the coalition for having us. If you're interested in learning more about Quell, you can either scan this QR code, except I think I'm gonna have to skip over it really quickly in the interest of time here because Matt's like right behind my back. But we also have pledge cards out at our table. So if you're interested in learning more about Quell or signing the pledge, come see us. And that is what I have. So thank you all so much. And if you're interested in connecting offline or outside of this conference, that's my QR code right there. So thank you guys so much. A little bit.
I was just standing up. So thank you. Is this on? Everybody hear me? So we are going to move into, and Bella's going to lead a panel. So again, that was awesome. It's really hard. I could never do it. I couldn't stand up and tell my story. So I think that's really awesome. And I really appreciate you doing that. That was awesome. So we are going to bring 3 people up. So one you've already met before. So Catherine, come on up. I feel like it's like, just get up here. It's like Price is Right or something. Her son, Nick. So this will be interesting because we're going to see a little mother-son interplay in this one.
You're taking my opening line.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I did not say that. And then Allie, who you all met because she won that award. So Allie is up there again too. Whose actual name is Allison, but she goes by Allie. Is that good? You good? All right. I'll be quiet.
Thank you. What? Yeah, they need mics. Mics. Mics.
Oh yeah, I'll get them.
Got it?
Yeah, I got it.
Hello? Oh, it is. Okay. Well, they get equipped here.
Testing.
So yeah, thank you all for being here. To build on what we just discussed, we're going to be continuing with the panel on the power of storytelling and mental health. As we've seen, sharing our experiences can help reduce stigma, create connection, and remind others that they're not alone. Today, you'll hear from some incredible panelists who bring their own lived experiences and professional perspectives on how storytelling and advocacy can support healing and create meaningful change. Thank you for staying with us for this important discussion. And I guess we'll begin by letting you all do a quick intro. I know that some of us, we do have a mother-son duo. See, Matt, where are you? You messed me up. You messed me up. Anyways, if you could introduce yourselves, that would be phenomenal.
Hello, everybody. I am Nick Ames, son of Catherine Ames right here. I am a former student, athlete, and All-American swimmer. I've dealt with mental health my whole life, inside and outside of my sport. And I am not a professional in any way, but I'm very passionate about this stuff. So that's why I'm here today to speak on that.
I'm the lady that kept dropping her glasses, and I promise I'm not on every panel. After today, I'm done. But it's great to be here in a different role on this panel as a mom. Bella thought it'd be really cool, I think, to share as mother, son, and some of the things we experienced within our family dealing with mental health. So I'm happy to be here again.
I'm Allie. I am a former student athlete. I played Division II lacrosse at St. Anselm College in Manchester, New Hampshire. I'm also co-founder of the Head Game Project, which is a student athlete advocacy group at St. A's. We started it in 2020, and I also am a 4th year in my clinical psychology PsyD program.
Phenomenal. Well, thank you all for being here. We're going to start with a question for all of you, so feel free to respond, all of you. So when you hear the phrase, the power of storytelling in the context of mental health and sport, what does that mean to you personally, either in your healing, your relationships, or your work? Because it can be a powerful thing, but it also calls for some vulnerability.
Yeah, storytelling is so important in sport. It can change an entire sport. As athletes, you're trained to perform, not as much to feel. It's control your emotions, push through the pain, stuff like that. But when you start to tell your story, that is where you kind of separate yourself from your athletic role and you start to feel more human. And when you put your experiences and feelings into words, you can really feel it start to lose power over you. And especially when you're talking to a big group and someone throws up a hand and relates, it can take some shame off you. So yeah, I think storytelling, like I said, can transform a locker room or even an entire sport. We've seen that with Michael Phelps. I think when leaders speak up, it can kind of redefine what strength looks like in that respective sport.
I would say in my profession, I am always storytelling, and I'll be in a room teaching kids about, I don't know what it is, maybe our stress responses or our self-awareness. And I will just go right into a story, and that's when they really listen. And that's what they remember. I recently shared a story about Nick's younger sister who had two big hip surgeries in December, same one last year. So she's had major surgery on both hips. She's a senior in high school. She ended up having some stressful, very frustrating news. She didn't want to talk about it. From Friday to Sunday was like, Mom, no. Monday morning wakes up, swelling at the surgical site. The body was telling her, I think you got to release this stuff, and why that's so important. She was 7 weeks post-op, totally fine. So her body showed her, hey, you got to get this out. So I've been sharing that story. Nick's been to some workshops with me, and they all remember that. They remember her swelling and what happened. So it's so powerful. It, like these guys have all said, it's how we connect, it's how we relate, it's how we release. I'm going to talk a little bit about a different side of storytelling later in a couple minutes. But yeah, it's so powerful. I think and any clinicians in here, I think we do this all the time, right? And we're helping people tell their story. And that is how we heal.
Thank you. Yeah, I very much relate. I think in general, storytelling is the way that I connect with people. I find that I oftentimes share little tidbits about who I am in any conversation I'm having with people, but also in just reflecting on my experience as a student athlete and now entering into the world of clinical psychology. I just find that it's present in so many different areas, but more specifically with the Head Game Project, the advocacy group that I co-founded, it really began by storytelling, connecting with a men's lacrosse player that I was friends with during my undergraduate career. And he was someone who we had kind of had humorous conversations with each other, out hanging out just about our experiences as student athletes. And it was very much based in humor of like, oh yeah, we're both going through this. And then when I kind of came up with this idea and saw this need for more resources and conversations around mental health on my campus, he was the person that I went to because we had had conversations about our experiences and I knew that he could relate in some way. And then once we started and talked to more people and heard about their stories and shared ours, that's how we kind of built this community. But it's interesting thinking back to when I was really struggling during my freshman and sophomore years. You're bringing up Michael Phelps. That was someone who I didn't relate to because when it comes to the people that were really vocal about their experiences as athletes, I didn't see myself in them because they had so many accolades under their belt, championship wins. They were high performing athletes that were getting recognized. And in my college experience, that's what I was really struggling with. I wasn't getting playing time. I wasn't getting the recognition. And so I really felt like, who am I to relate to somebody who does have all of these things and I don't? So I further isolated myself and then didn't connect with people. So I think ultimately it's interesting that ended up being where I did find myself in the community of storytelling and connecting. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, that's kind of a perfect follow-up to what I have a kind of a follow-up for you regarding that. So Allie, I'm curious, how did creating the peer program help you make meaning of your own experiences? And how did that inform how you support athletes today? Because as you mentioned, maybe you didn't see yourself in one person, but you did kind of find your way by doing your own thing. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think something that's interesting, and when talking to different athletes that I work with now in the clinical space and also coaching, that meaning of being a part of a team and the meaning that you find within a group was so core to who I was. Being an athlete is where, I found my community. That was where I found my friends. And when I entered in college, I really didn't feel a part of my team because I wasn't getting playing time. And I really, that was so closely associated to my self-worth and my sense of meaning. And so, again, isolated myself and really separated myself from that community. And because I didn't feel that I belonged, because I wasn't making a contribution on the field in the way that I wanted to. And I put so much pressure on myself in that way. And then, going into my senior year, a psychology major, we're, exposed to a lot of these different concepts. And I started to understand, the importance of connecting with other people. And I was finding that in other areas of my life. And once I started this, the Head Game project and having conversations with other student athletes, I just rediscovered my meaning in a different way and how I could have an impact on the athletic community in a new way. And that was really surprising to me and something that, I still look back on and am surprised by how much that impacted my experience, different experiences at the college, and then also just led into, my career now.
I so resonate with that. I feel like something that I didn't get the chance to touch on when I was presenting is that not only did I find my way, I'm very similar to Allie. I feel like my contributions to my team, again, lots of injuries, experience COVID, like so many different barriers. And I was not an everyday player. I wasn't a starter, I was hurt all the time, basically. And so I really found my meaning through engaging with peer programs at my school, SAC, like those kinds of things. So I appreciate you bringing that to light because I think that also helps to find purpose outside sport. Even if it's inside the athletic community, it's like you have another outlet, another way to redefine your experience. So thank you for that. Nick, you talked about like putting words to your experiences and how that was so powerful for you. So as a student athlete with lived experience, how did sharing or owning, as you put it, your own story, even communicating with family, change the way that you related to yourself as an athlete and a person?
Yeah, that's a good one. And it makes me think of one instance in particular when I was in middle school. So I have a chronic illness called hemophilia. I was diagnosed at birth. It's a bleeding disorder. Pretty much my blood doesn't clot. Reverse Wolverine. But thank you back there. But growing up, this was super tough because one, I'm super competitive. I wanted to participate in everything I could. And this made me not be able to. I wouldn't be able to participate in contact sports without being injured for a week after, So I still did my fair share. I was a competitive basketball player and swimmer in middle school. But in basketball, it's not a contact sport. I would still find myself getting injured all the time. And with this bleeding disorder, a lot of the injuries are internal. So it's not stuff you see, much like mental health. And sometimes I would show up to school on crutches and kids would be like, I don't see anything wrong with you. Like, are you faking it? You're just weak. What's going on? Which sucked because I just want to participate. Like if I could, I'd be playing every day. And that was really hard for me all throughout my life, honestly. I'm still dealing with it. But all throughout my life in my sport and outside, it's something that I've had to deal with. And I kind of kept it to myself. Even as with a therapist mother, I wouldn't open up, which just sounds wrong, but it's true. And that didn't change until I got to high school and I met a good group of kids. I joined the swim team. Met a good group of kids, made me feel comfortable, and I opened up to them about this experience. And it really just lifted a weight off my shoulders, having other people know what I went through. and other people could relate when I told them my story, and that took the shame off of me. And in turn, I ended up becoming a leader on that team, became the captain of my swim team, and helped kids start sharing their stories. So yeah, I think it just helped me be more confident in myself, get back some confidence.
Absolutely. And Catherine, to kind of bring you in a little bit, you bring both a parent's perspective and the lens of advocacy, being a clinician, also through the game. Can you speak to how storytelling between you and Nick, sometimes privately and not publicly, played a role in both of your healing journeys? And if we have a moment, I'd like to invite like the two of you to have a dialogue as well about how, like Nick, your thoughts on that and just bringing that dynamic into things, because I feel like it's important for our parents in the room and caregivers writ large to hear some of this.
Well, how much time do we have? No, I'm just kidding. Listen, it's so special to sit up here with my son and be vulnerable and talk about what we've been through. All children change parents' lives. They just all do. I have two beautiful daughters. Nick's my middle child, my only son. But when I say Nick changed the course of my life, he really did, because when he was born and diagnosed, I halted my career because we didn't know what to expect. How many of you in here even know what hemophilia is? Okay, but that's more than was 22 years ago. But we didn't know. In fact, I said this last year, we spent a lot of time on this campus with him as a baby. We walked up today, like that's the building we went into all the time. So it's very nostalgic to be back here. I think what's hard as a mother, son, parent, child, parents also feel that pain of their children. So even though this was his story, it was kind of my story too. Now me, I'm very vocal, I'm very open. I love sharing and talking. Maybe that wasn't right for him, like I wanted to meet with his teachers every year and tell him and explain, partly because I was so freaking scared of just letting him be a kid. And that is precisely what we had to do. But, I think I wanted to tell the story so much. I'm just not sure it was always what he wanted. Do you feel like that? There was some times like that? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. When I was younger, you definitely overshared for my taste. But, looking back, especially now, I think I developed a little more up there. I've come to appreciate it a lot more. Even while she was just talking about that, I just thought when I was in kindergarten, they went in, talked to my teacher, told them I had hemophilia, and I hated it. I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want anyone to think I was weak or whatever. But every time I would come into school after I did my medicine, which was a shot in my vein, it left a bad taste in my mouth when I was younger. My teacher would give me gummy bears, and that was pretty awesome because it made me feel good. And
we told the story.
Exactly. I was getting there.
Yeah.
See, already speaking. But yeah, that's because they told the story. And I think that did end up benefiting me a lot throughout my school career and athletic career. Because people knew what I was going through and I didn't have to deal as much with the ignorance of other people.
But I'll say too, even my husband, he didn't always want the story told. And it's a fine line, we didn't want him to be judged. And like you had alluded to, Bella, I think known for the diagnosis, like that doesn't define you. And, we had I remember when Nick was little and he talked about not loving himself and he was little, 5. And I'm thinking, is my 5-year-old suicidal? Just devastated, but I think he pull it apart, right? That this is a part of him. It wasn't all of him, but it sure felt like it was all of him. And it certainly took up so much of our space as a family. And then we had to dial back a bit from the community because it became everything. And then the girls suffered a little bit, you know? So I guess what I'm trying to say is the story in a family is a little complicated, right? We all experience it differently, and it is important to share and to connect and to teach and to educate. But there is sometimes different timing and different level of comfort. Like I said, my husband, he didn't want to go into the school every year, but I was like, well, they need to know because they don't know what to do. So I think that was just something we had to navigate, and we still navigate.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, you're both up here today telling your stories, and you both engage in advocacy through the game as well. So just to follow up, like Catherine, what is something that you've learned from Nick through his willingness to share his story even today with this audience? And Nick, in what has it meant to you to not only have your mom listen, but also like become part of this advocacy journey alongside you? Literally, like you guys are doing this advocacy together. You're sitting up here together, you're storytelling together. Like, can you speak to that?
I mean, she's the one that gave me the confidence and ability to do this.
Because she was telling stories.
Precisely. There we go. Yeah, like I said earlier, I didn't even want to talk to her about anything I was going through at a certain point. But I don't want to say she kept pushing me, but just kept putting that idea into my head that, hey, if you talk it out, like it will help. Like this will work. And I think that's what got me here today, is learning that talking it out, actually, it does help, guys. It really does.
Well, I could not be prouder. I can't believe I haven't like teared up, but you know, I'm so proud to be here with him. And even when I started the business, I was like, Nick, come on, this is us. You can do this with me. And now he is a part of the company. But something I say a lot, and I think this will resonate with everyone in the room: what you don't share, you store. And that's the essence of this, is that release. You know, what we hold on to, it can become toxic. In one of the sessions this morning, this beautiful speaker shared her cancer diagnosis and a child with an eating disorder. And I was like, yep, I can totally relate to that. And it brings connection. You know, it's this most beautiful thing of helping us connect, which is what we've been saying. That's the protective factor, is we have to connect as humans. All this chat GPT, AI, and I was talking to a colleague earlier how a lot of kids now are, you know, getting their therapy that way. But this is what you miss, is this human aspect of real stories. And I would say to any clinician in here, don't be afraid to share. I know maybe we're not taught that, but like, it's just the thread that weaves us together. You don't have to dump, and you shouldn't dump, but it's the little bit that brings us together. So Nicholas is, you know, my heart, obviously with his sisters as well, but his journey has been unique with a chronic illness. Anyone with a chronic illness, there is mental health. And like he said, hemophilia in particular, you don't see it. It is internal. When people think bleeding disorder, they think he's gonna, you know, bleed everywhere. That's not what happens. It's internal, very much like mental health. So this is inspiring. It touches my heart, and it just pushes me to keep going. So I have so much gratitude for this experience. So.
Thank you both for being here together. I think that's incredible. So I do have a closing question for all of you. For the athletes, clinicians, and parents in the room today, what's one takeaway you'd offer about storytelling and mental health? Something people can carry with them, even if they're not ready to share their story publicly. Allie, do you want to start?
I feel like this could go both ways. There's a story that's coming to mind for me when it comes to just like how you can welcome storytelling. And I now am a club lacrosse coach for the team that I played for. And going back, it's really interesting because the way that it's kind of just cycled through, a lot of the coaches are former college lacrosse players. And we often, chit chat with each other in between drills. And a lot of us, are looking at these young players who are getting recruited to these really high performing programs. And I often find myself, reverted back to that feeling of being a freshman and sophomore and not getting that recognition that I wanted so badly. And these girls talking about, oh, I reached 100 points this year. And I'm like, I played 13 games my entire college career, and I probably played like 5 minutes for each of them. So I don't relate to that. And I have this shame and embarrassment around it. But I started just sharing, I had a really different experience, and it was really impacted by my mental health, and it could have been looked at as an injury, but it wasn't in the same way. And so I've been sharing little bits and pieces to some of these coaches that I've gotten closer with. And one of these practices, one of the coaches who outwardly doesn't really present as someone who doesn't talk in a way where mental health is on the forefront of her mind. Not that she doesn't think about it, but I just, not one of those people who talks a lot based in feelings and emotions. But she came and started talking to me about a family member of hers who is experiencing symptoms of depression, and was asking me questions from, a clinical standpoint, because she knows that I'm in school, but also from a personal standpoint. And I walked away and was so surprised of like, wow, like I was not expecting that from you, of all people. And the fact that it really stemmed from me just sharing little things about my story, not like all at once, not dumping it on her, but just like opening the door. And I find that that's also something that I say to the student athletes that I work with, when trying to reach out to even a parent and it seems really scary, like you don't have to provide context yet. You don't have to tell them the whole story. Just share, like, I'm not feeling great. Just open the window, like crack it open and leave it for them to then take that next step forward, right? So I think it can go hand in hand, but that's just one takeaway I offer.
I love that because I was thinking the same thing around keeping the door open. When Nick says I was very persistent, I believe I was just saying, I'm here, buddy, when you need me. I'm sure it felt different to him. But that's what we have to do, is just open the window, open the door, model that vulnerability. I think as an adult and a practitioner, we need to do the work too. And if you feel like you've done the work, it's easier to share because you're not gonna, totally fall apart. And if you do, that happens as well. And that's okay. We can't be afraid to be human. That's where kids love that. They can sniff out the bullshit, right? They know right away, can I trust this person? So be real, but do some of your work, do what you need to do to be able to share authentically, carefully, to help make those connections. I just think we have to do more of this because it is what brings us together. So keep that door open, keep that window open, do the work, model vulnerability appropriately, but do it. Don't be afraid to invite people in.
Yeah, I agree with everything that was just said, especially the little by little part. I think it's scary doing this. Like I was shaken before this, I'll be honest. But it is good to get your story out, even if it's just a little bit, just get it out. And I would like to add on too, I think listening to other people's stories is just as important as telling your own. Gaining a new perspective can change your whole outlook. So I think that's just as important.
Incredible. Thank you guys so much for being here, and just round of applause for our panel for being vulnerable, and thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Were incredible.
Thanks, Bella.
Thanks.
So I just want to note that was Bella's first ever panel that she's moderated. So
Oh, woohoo!
like another.
Thanks, everyone.
That was awesome. So we do have about a half-hour break right now. We're going to come back and do a film screening with another panel after that, and then we'll move into dinner, so the pasta bar and our athlete panel. So an incentive to be back at 4:30 is somebody else, Suzanne Potts, is going to take over the MC duties for a minute. So you don't have to listen to me. So come back at 4:30. We'll do the film screening and then a couple more panels. And then that'll be our evening. You can all go. 4:30. Everybody, 4:30.
All right. AV in the back, are we good to go? All right, we're moving ahead. Hi, everybody. I'm Suzanne Potts. So lovely to see you all. A lot of familiar faces, a lot of new faces. So glad to see you all in the room. This has been a dream come true for those of us that have been working in this space for some time. So I want you to think about, I hope you all had a good break, got some rest. Mental health is important during the 30 minutes that you have off. Think about a film, perhaps, that had a major impact on you, a sports-specific film as a child, right? Can you think of one, maybe that you saw that motivated you or influenced you in some way? Just think on that. I know we had a wonderful session earlier about storytelling and the impact of storytelling. You're going to see the thread that runs through all this sessions today is around storytelling through film, specifically as a medium. And I think that storytelling through film is a really unique way to capture, engage, inspire athletic stories in ways that perhaps we'd not thought about. So when I was a kid, I think about movies like The Champ. I'm old. Anyone watch The Champ? Okay. Rocky. Yes. Okay. Rudy. Arguably Bend It Like Beckham. That's a mental health journey in and of itself. What other films come to mind for you real quick? Stick It. Chariots of Fire. Who? Remember the Titans. Yes. Miracle, another one. Oh, I had that written down. Thank you. $1 Million Baby. We Are Marshall, right? Tug at your heartstrings. So I'm really excited because we have an opportunity to see a short film tonight. And then we're going to follow up with the filmmaker and some of the people featured in this film to really hopefully inspire and engage you to think about how you can utilize film as a way to tell your stories or to learn from other athletes' stories. I'm super thrilled to have Glenn and his participants here, so I'll introduce them afterwards. But without further ado, I want to introduce and start Mind You, our film. I'll be back.
My parents both played beach volleyball for fun at the Huntington Beach Pier. And so I was the little rugrat running around on the sand. from the age I could pick up the volleyball, I was trying to play. We had a coach actually who also just had a passion for the game, and every summer on Tuesdays and Thursdays for free, this man would train us, just put us through fun drills, and we just got to know a really cool group of athletes that ended up being like superstars in the collegiate scene, some Olympians. So I saw some of the older girls that I was training with on those Tuesdays and Thursdays starting to pursue beach volleyball in college, and I was like, maybe that's something I could do. Back when the NCAA didn't have the regulations for recruiting that they have now, you could get recruited in 8th grade if you wanted to. I had actually committed to play for a full scholarship at Pepperdine to play indoor and beach volleyball there. And looking back, I'm like, what in the world? A 14-year-old choosing a college? Like, I truly didn't even know what college was at that point. So I shouldn't have been making any kind of major life decisions. But so I had committed early, and then going into my senior year, ended up switching schools to go to UCLA.
I think what attracts me to UCLA is the academics are just incredible. And then I also have a lot of friends going there that also play beach, and the coach is awesome.
I didn't know what I didn't know getting to school, and like, okay, now on top of, managing my sport and my academics, I also have to live by myself and like feed myself and do all of these like basic seeming things, but on my own for the first time. And I didn't earn a starting spot my freshman year for the beginning part of the season. It wasn't until we had a pink eye outbreak on our team that I got to sneak in there, and I did well, I performed, and I never left. You're competing against the best, so you have to be your best. You have to find a competitive edge. You have to do essentially whatever it takes to get in the lineup. I thought that my body needed to change, and so I saw changing my eating habits and my exercise habits as a way to gain some kind of competitive edge. I was also kind of looking towards my teammates as role models for that, and I saw a different body type than what I had. We had this healthier dorm food place called Brew and Plate, and I'd go there, and every morning I'd start off with that same intention of, today I'm gonna eat healthy. Today is gonna be the day, it's gonna be great. I'm gonna eat healthy, clean, I'm gonna put all the right foods in my body, and I'm gonna do that to a minimum. I'm gonna eat as little as possible. I go off to my training and practice and probably some class. Go to lunch, same thing. Would still do pretty well at that time too. It's whatever I thought was the lean, healthy meal. And then come dinner time, I was ravenous. I was so hungry because of the way I had kind of deprived myself in those first 2 meals, where it was easier to be disciplined. And by that time, my body was just craving calories and needed it after so much training. I mean, on average, like probably 4.5 hours of training, and when it comes down to it with weights and practice and then sometimes conditioning depending on the day. So dinner time is when I would overeat so much, like more than 2 times of what a normal dinner was for me. And then on top of that, I would go to the student store and eat a bunch of ice cream and the foods that I had restricted myself throughout the day. Eventually, after a few weeks of doing that, I started throwing up my food because I felt so bad about what I was putting into my body and so guilty. And there was a sense of shame around all of that. So I saw throwing up as a solution. I knew that this wasn't good for my body. I knew that there were better solutions out there. I didn't know how to get to those, but I was totally ashamed and I didn't tell anyone. The eating disorder for me also gave me a feeling, a very false feeling of control. You know, I was doing all of the work in the weight room and at practice and everything, and so I saw eating as something I could control. I mean, by all means, it's something you are personally choosing. You're choosing what you're eating. But I fell into that cycle with good intentions, but I didn't have the means to carry out those intentions in a healthy way. I was struggling with suicidal thoughts. And for me, I had this sense of this perspective that shouldn't be allowed, because I come from this wonderful family. You know, I was performing quite well still in beach volleyball. How could I be having thoughts like this? And so every part of me just wanted to run away from that. And I just tried to bottle up my emotions for as long as possible until they bubbled over, essentially.
If you guys don't know me, I'm Berkeley. I'm the league reporter. I come from the league office. My bosses are the commissioners. They try and help run this league as smoothly as they can. We have to start talking about this stuff. It's not talked about a lot. It's a scary topic to talk about. It's a touchy subject to talk about, but we need to talk about it. What I do with every single team is I have all of you look at each other to your left and to your right and say, brother, I love you, and I'm here for you.
Brother, I love all of y'all. I love all of y'all.
Make sure you guys love on each other, are there for each other, check in on each other. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mark and Kim for their part about the Time of Time.
Play songs and tell stories about him.
It's just telling the athletes who Tyler was, sharing some of his personality, some of the things that happened in his life leading up to his suicide. Talk about Helinski's hope. The real meaning and what we want to get out of these Tyler Talks is hope and the belief that there is help, and they just need to reach out and ask for it.
There are a lot of Tylers, but the hope is that had Tyler asked for help, he would get the help he needed. He may have still died by suicide at some point. He may have treated for 6 months and been fantastic. This may be a lifetime disease or illness that he struggles with. All of those are better than where he's at. And so I want the kids to see that. I want them to hear Tyler's story. And as much for us as it is about Tyler, it can be any of them.
One of the things that's going to be really important is building the social connections. And so that's not only like building them, but maintaining the ones you have, right? So raise your hand if you're that friend that no matter what happens, you're going to make sure you call your friends. You're going to make sure that y'all always talk at some point. just me. Nobody else raised their hand. Okay, there we go. Yeah, like, and then
athletes live their lives at a level where they are doing something exceptional. And as long as they're doing that exceptional thing, it can often feel like it must be okay. Sometimes you can do an exceptional thing and it doesn't mean that everything's okay. When you're asking someone to be better than anybody else, that is a pressure that is going to weigh down on people. That pressure being time constraints, academic things, not having any time to themselves. You need to go win. You don't get a day off. And I think sometimes we even use NIL and things like that to say like, oh, well, you're getting paid. You don't need a day off, or you're getting paid. Like, you shouldn't have these problems. That's not how money works. I mean, we think it does, but that's not how money works. And it's not how life works. We have 3 clinicians that primarily work with athletes. We also work with the University Counseling Center and their psychiatry department to make sure that anything that's needed as far as like medication or different kinds of treatment is also available to our students. We're working with schedules. We're understanding that they're sometimes going to need to like move things around, and we're trying to get them in between practices and in between classes and things like that. And we have that flexibility, and that's different. And it's just not feasible if you don't have somebody who is directly like their primary goal is, hey, how do we offer this service for athletes? In the SEC, I know that we're also working with other schools that are trying to do the same thing. They're just trying to build a sports psychology program that does the best they can for their students.
I don't think I can even remember a time where athletics wasn't a part of who I am. Parents threw me into everything. I hated soccer, apparently, cried my first game, but ended up loving it, and that actually was my primary sport for most of my life. I started at Syracuse, and then I ended up transferring to American. The timing of my athletic career coincided with the implementation of Title IX at a lot of colleges. A lot of sports were being added for women. I found this crazy sport called lacrosse that has completely taken over my life. It was really important for me to make that switch as soccer wasn't working, because I honestly didn't know who I would have been without being that athlete. Like, that was such a huge part of my identity. My junior year, I tore my ACL. And I think that's where things definitely shifted for me, because my boyfriend also dumped me. So that was like a double whammy right there. But with that, so like ACL, literally I think the worst thing every female athlete like dreads. So I had that coupled with things not going great in my relationship, and I had suicidal ideations. And I remember driving home and wanting to drive my car into a tree. Thankfully, I was able to call my mother, and her and my stepdad immediately came over, and I was in the psychiatrist's office the next day and had a lot of support. And that, like, there was like no embarrassment. And I think when I talk to student athletes now, there is a little bit more of a stigma than I was raised with. Sometimes when we're talking about NAIA or D2 or D3 student athletes, they don't feel like their athletics are as respected, even though they're putting in a similar amount of time, just with different kind of barriers or constraints around it. One of my good friends was an assistant soccer coach at Notre Dame, and they were coming off a national title, and we were talking about what our kids were going through, and it was virtually identical, the exact same problems. They just might also have a dietitian and private jets and a manager who carries their bags for them and multiple athletic trainers and all of those things. But again, at their core, they're all the same. They're kids, and they all want to do well.
They go back to putt again. Mom set putt, swings away, dug by Sparks. Sparks with no block.
The reason I got into therapy was because my assistant coach, she gave me that little nudge of like, hey, I see you, you need help, and we have the resources here. And so that's how I ended up getting to see Melinda.
She was a freshman coming to this prestigious university, earned a starting position. They won the national championships her first year. Like, on the outside, it was an incredibly amazing, awesome year, and it was. And yet, I think her story highlights how things can look good on the outside, and you can be in a position where you're having incredible success, and yet you're really struggling on the inside.
I remember walking out of my first therapy session like, oh crap, like, this is gonna suck. But this is also exactly what I need. So I almost ran away.
The way I approach disordered eating and really just approach therapy is, as a starting point, building a relationship, building some trust, and building some like safety in the room.
I didn't know that I was just gonna cry during that first session. And it's very, very common, you know, the first therapy session, you start talking about your feelings and what you're struggling with for the first time. And sometimes that's what people do in their first therapy session. They just cry.
Really, with eating disorders, we're looking at how are they functioning, like how are they helping someone? Because usually they are serving a purpose, they are serving a need, and in order to effectively treat, we need to start with understanding that.
I was so critical of my appearance. If I could just lose a little bit around my waist, or if I could just tone my abs, or whatever